Look, I am not one who believes in this supernatural stuff. I am the kind of guy who enjoys a good horror movie every once in a while, but that's a movie, you know. When the credits roll, the magic of the movie ends. That's how it works. None of it ever really seemed real to me. Until now. Some quick information before I begin. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment. I have been living here for about a year now. I share the building with 4 other apartments. The layout of my bedroom is simple. My bed is in the corner, so there are 2 walls next to me when I lay down. The one on my left side, shared with my neighbor, and the one behind me. Keep this in mind as I continue my story. It started a week ago. I remember waking up to a slow knock coming from the left wall. It was rhythmic, faint, but loud enough for me to wake up. I was way too sleepy to care, so I shrugged it off. Who hasn't heard weird noises coming from their house? Eventually, I got myself to fall back asleep. When I had woken up in the morning, I noticed the knocking had stopped, and I proceeded on with my day as if nothing had happened. That was the first night. The second night was much like the first one. I woke up again to the faint knocking. This time I got a little annoyed. I rolled over to the wall and knocked back. I tried to sound intimidating, but not so aggressive that my neighbor would think I'm a jerk. I gave 3 hard knocks, and sure enough, the knocking stopped. I was relieved, so I closed my eyes and fell back asleep. The third night there was no knocking, or if there was, I slept through it completely. Now the fourth night, things got weird. The knocking had started again. This time I didn't even open my eyes. I just rolled over and knocked on the wall like I did the second night. The knocking stopped. I rolled back to my spot, but then the knocking continued. This time it was faster. It became more urgent. It wasn't faint anymore. I could almost feel the pressure coming through the wall. At this point, I was just exhausted and wanted it to stop, so I finally decided I needed to get mean. So I pounded on the wall and shouted, "Shut up!" The knocking finally stopped. But that's when I heard something else. It was so light, I almost didn't hear it. It was faint, but it sounded like whispers. I let my curiosity get the best of me. I rolled over closer to the wall and placed my ear on it to listen to what was being said.
Mine. Mine. Mine.
The voice was deep and gritty, like someone was saying it through their teeth. It kept repeating it over and over again. I finally pulled away after the initial shock and panic ran through me. I got out of my bed and into the living room. I sat on my couch shaking. My skeptical brain was trying to think of logical reasons. But somewhere in my mind, there is no doubt that what I was hearing was real. I stayed up for the rest of the night. In the morning, I finally approached the wall and tried to listen, but I heard nothing. The next 2 nights, there was nothing. I even stayed up to listen on the 5th night, but no knocking, and certainly no voice. A short moment of relief ran through me as I entered the 7th day. On the 7th night, I was awoken by the knocking again. Only this time, it wasn't on my wall in my bedroom. It was in the wall in the living room, which is right outside my room. I got up to go listen, but as I got closer to the wall, the knocks became louder, eventually turning into a pounding booms. I swear it was shaking the apartment. The pounding became so vigorous, but as I finally reached the wall, it stopped. I froze as I couldn't believe what was happening. I placed my ear on the wall to see if I could hear a voice, but what I heard scared me even more. Someone or something was breathing. The breathing was very deep and heavy, but most of all, chilling, like someone was just breathing slowly in my ear. I could almost feel the air leaving their lungs. As I continued to listen, the breathing stopped and turned into faint mumbling. The words were hard to understand, but as it got louder and louder, my heart dropped. I knew what it was saying. Each time the word was said, it got more aggressive, until it felt like I was being yelled at. The voice was hostile and demanding as it kept repeating. I stood in fear, covering my ears. I had backed away from the wall at this point, but could still hear it. I didn't know what to do, and in panic, I finally yelled back, "What do you want?" No response. "What do you want?" Complete silence. I heard nothing. I stood there for a while, scared and confused. After I gained some courage, I walked back to the wall and put my ear on it. Nothing, no knocking, no breathing, no voice. A part of me was relieved, but the other part was terrified. I eventually went back into my bedroom and laid on my bed. I tried to get comfortable, but I couldn't fall back asleep. I mean, who would? I felt like I was losing my mind. Whatever was left of my skeptical brain kept telling me it was just all in my head. It was all in my head. I'm just exhausted and tired. I'm imagining things. That's it. Just imagining things in my head. These thoughts comforted me, and I soon began to shut my eyes. But as I laid there, I heard,
You.
I shot straight out of my bed, put my shoes on, and left my apartment. I ran to my car and stayed there for the rest of the night. I cried in fear as I processed everything. I guess I dozed off because the next thing I knew, I was greeted by the sunrise. All of this was last night. I'm writing this because I need help. I don't know what to do and I'm so terrified. Tonight I am staying the night at my friend's house because I can't be there another night. I don't know what's happening, but there is one thing I know, that I can't deny it any longer. There's something in the walls, and they want me.